The chapter starts where the last one ended. Luffy is confused and doesn't know why he has to fight Gaban. Zoro thinks back to what Colin said about how powerful his dad is. Luffy stretches his hand to take the key, but Gaban easily dodges him. Starting to get annoyed, Luffy jumps closer to Gaban and then tries to take the key again. This time, Gaban coats the key with Haki and smashes Luffy into the ground. Black lightning appears when the key hits Luffy. Luffy emerges from the rubble on the ground and he's very annoyed. Luffy stretches his hands at Gaban multiple times, like when he uses the Gomu Gomu no Gatling, but Gaban dodges them easily again. Gaban says, "What a nice straw hat you got there. Suits you better than that helmet, don't you think?" Luffy says, "Obviously, it's a treasure that Shanks let me keep for him. Now give me that key." Gaban says, "Keep? He didn't just give it to you? What a stingy man." Luffy says, "Idiot, it's not like that. Stop blurting out stuff like that when you don't know anything about Shanks." Gaban says, "Haha, right back at you, brat." Suddenly, Gaban shoves the part of the key into Luffy's mouth and Luffy's head takes the shape of the key. Then Gaban takes out both his axes and prepares to attack Luffy with them. Zoro says, "What? Axes?" And Gaban says, "Yaso Takeru, army of fierce warriors." Zoro says, "Luffy, get out of the way." Luffy senses how powerful Gaban's Haki is, and his face changes to a worried and funny expression. Gaban uses a huge attack with multiple axe blows that destroy one of the castle towers. Luffy barely dodges the attack and Zoro stops part of it with his 3 swords. Gaban, thinking to himself, he has a good crewmate. Nami and Road are in shock. Luffy and Zoro get serious. Luffy changes to Gear 5 and black lightnings appear in Zoro's 3 swords. All Luffy's clothes and his axe are white now. Even his Viking helmet has fused with his hair and it looks like if Luffy has horns. Luffy says, "Let's do this, Zoro," and Zoro says, "Yeah." Gaban, thinking to himself, so that's truly the white form. Luffy and Zoro attack Gaban, but he suddenly gives up and entrusts them the key. Luffy and Zoro end up crashing into rocks since they have to stop their attack. Luffy and Zoro are angry because they don't get to continue the fight. Road is about to tell them who Gaban is, but Gaban stops Road while he picks up his robe and Casa hat. Gaban says, "Don't rush it, Road. By the time you leave this island, Velbath is still safe. Come and see me again." Zoro says, "Like we'd ever do that." Luffy says, "He's right, you dummy. Thanks for the key though, but we are not seeing you again." Bond walks away smiling while we see a little flashback about one moment when Shanks came to meet Gaban in Elbath. Gaban says, "Hey Shanks, you really expect me to trust that kid easily?" And Shanks says, "Ha ha ha, you're right. You may do whatever you like, Gaban-san. But first, given my demo, I'm sure there's a lot of aspiring programmers out there. Well, you're in luck because today's sponsor, Boot.dev, can help you with that. With Boot.dev, you can learn back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. Because the smartest way to learn code is to make sure you're never bored so that you can, actually stick with it long enough to reach your goals. Because you can't learn to code without actually writing a lot of code and building real projects. With Boot.dev, you'll earn XP, levels, achievements, and complete quests to get a top spot on the global leaderboard. All the content is free to read and watch in guest mode, but a paid membership unlocks all the interactive features like hands-on coding, AI assistance, progress tracking, and game elements. Programmers have an amazing earning potential. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary for back-end developers in the US in 2023 was over $100,000. So guys, go to boot.dev and use my code Zhoniin to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Thanks, guys. So that is the big infamous sequence between Luffy, Zoro, and Scopper Gaban. To be honest, this kind of went how I expected it, and I'm sure a lot of you as well. At first, Luffy is getting played by him in his base form, as he should. And I don't really think this drops Luffy's stock. Luffy, you know, like we said, is in his base form. Since he relies on transformations, it's not like he's just at Yonko, quote-unquote, level at all times, if you know what I mean. He has to kind of go into Gear 5 for that to happen. So Gaban evading him and hitting him, making him look kind of dumb is fine. It's supposed to raise Gaban's stock, because I guess he's supposed to be somewhat of a player in the end game here. But, you know, as we see, as soon as Luffy goes to Gear 5 and then it's, you know, overkill with Zoro, he backs down. But it's supposed to be him backing down more so because he sees the white form, meaning that he knew about this. He knew about Nika, so there's probably something in the One Piece or on Laugh Tale that let them know about this ahead of time. So he entrusts the key to Luffy because he's like, oh, he has the white form, so I guess he's gonna be the one that frees the world or whatever. Or at least I'm assuming that's what this is leading to, or his line of thinking at least. Cut to the Walrus School, and the kids tell Ange that they saw a strange bird flying by. And when Ange looks up, it's gone. Cut now to a forest in the Sun World, near the Walrus School. Shamrock and Gunko land in a huge branch. Shamrock is surprised to see that Elbaf even has a school. Then Gunko raises her hand and creates a magic circle in the ground. A black lightning strikes in the magic circle, and 2 new God Knights appear in an epic double page. So yeah, we also went over this yesterday. It appears that this whole magic circle business, it can be learned, I suppose. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't think this is Gunko's ability, obviously, since we've seen it before with the Gorosei. So I think that this all comes from Imu. Imu might be supplying this ability or teaching them how to do it at least. First God Knight is Saint Summers from the Shepherd family, Jupiter's family. He's a middle-aged man with glasses, long hair, and a beard. His goatee has a cross shape. He's sitting in a luxurious armchair next to a trunk with clothes, and he's talking with someone by Denden Mushi. It seems he has been summoned before he can dress up, so he only wears a tank top and underwear. He says, "Don't give me that. I need to change and do some preparations. Give me an hour, okay? And what about that stuff? You know, the food supplies. Surely we're not going to let gods be starved to death. Hello? What's with the transmission?" So yeah, this is the first new God Knight introduced in this chapter. And yeah, as it says here, he is a part of the Gorosei Jupiter's family. I don't think this is his son. It's probably like his great-great-great-grandson, given that Jupiter is implied to be over 800 years old. Unless this guy, Saint Summers, also has whatever kind of immortality that the Gorosei have as well, which unclear still. The second God Knight is Saint Gillingham from the Lemo Schiff or Remo Sif family. Although it is not confirmed in the chapter, Gillingham clearly has the power of the Kirin Zoan fruit. His name is Kiringamu. In Japanese, another hint. And it seems that the Kirin fruit is awakened because there are white clouds floating around Gillingham's neck. Gillingham appears in hybrid form. He has a very long neck with a long mane. His head is similar to a horse's head, but with 2 horns and 2 whiskers. Gillingham wears a military uniform similar to Shamrock's, and he's gripping a very strange trident. And he has a bubble/glass case around his head, like the Celestial Dragons, with a special respirator. Gillingham says, oh no, I'm going to be late. I was half asleep. Where did they say I need to go? So here's the second one, Saint Gillingham from Lemo Schiff or Remo Sif family, which I don't think we've been introduced to before. So this guy isn't coming from the Gorosei lineage like the other one, but I guess we're getting introduced to another mythical Zoan fruit here, the Kirin Zoan fruit. And as we talked about yesterday, the Kirin is another yokai, which was originally speculated to be one of the Gorosei's devil fruit, but it turns out that it was the Bakotsu with Venus. But this guy has the Kirin, and as it's described here, a head similar to a horse's, but with 2 horns and 2 long whiskers, and a very long neck with a long mane. This more or less lines up with what we've seen of the Kirin yokai art that you could just find on Google. And let me just go over one more time what the Kirin is said to be on yokai.com. So apparently it's one of the rarest and most awesome and powerful creatures ever known in East Asia, and is a regal animal, holy and highly revered. It's considered a god in its own right, and it resembles a deer with dragon-like scales covering its body. It's a chimerical beast, and it has a tail like an ox and a flowing mane. So going further into this, something that we didn't talk about yesterday is that it said that it's a gentle animal, and the Kirin never eats the flesh of other beings, and it takes great care to never tread on any living thing, even insects, and when it walks, it does so without trampling a single blade of grass. So I don't know if this is going to play into how the devil fruit works, or if Oda is going to like try to adapt this part of its lore, but still pretty interesting if this actually is a part of its abilities, like it somehow doesn't hurt people, but it still can be effective in battle some way. I don't know. Summers notices that Shamrock and Gunko are standing in front of him, and Gunko turns around embarrassed since Summers is only wearing his underwear. Summers says, what's wrong, Gunko? What brings you to my home? Huh? Shamrock? Huh? Isn't this Elbaf? Shamrock asks why both of them are summoned when he needs only one, and Gillingham says it's because Shamrock has been summoned back to the Holy Land by orders from above. So yeah, it turns out that Shamrock is going to be going back to Mary Joie, and it's good because he doesn't really need to be here. I mean, it's cool that he's been introduced and everything, but since he is a part of like the chase for the One Piece, or the final part of this story, I guess, with all of those big remaining characters, it's fine that he goes back, because we have 3 holy knights here. That's more than enough anyway. Summers says, so this is the country of the giants. How massive. What are you doing in a non-world government country? Are you visiting Harold's grave? Then, in the amazing final page of the chapter, we see how the 4 god knights observe kids in the walrus school from the top of the giant branch. Summers has finally put on his military uniform, which is similar to that of his companions, but with several medals and a rose in the chest. He also carries a sword on his waist with a thorny handle. Summers says, okay, so we are abducting kids and bringing them over to the Holy Land. Well, not that these kids are small enough to fit in a bag. Gillingham says people without the mark can't pass through the abyss, so we'll have to transport them by ships. So yeah, it turns out that this whole summoning circle thing is called abyss, or in the kanji it means pentagram. And you need a quote-unquote mark to be able to pass through it, and I guess this mark is, given by Emu, like what we've been talking about. So you can't just force anyone to come through this portal. It has to be like a marked person, or there's some kind of ceremony or something. Gunko angrily says, this guy. The chapter ends with Shamrock talking with an evil face. Shamrock says, with your powers, why don't you make this a game? End of chapter, no break next week. So yeah, it seems like the game that they're going to make out of this is similar to, I guess, the native hunting game that we saw in the God Valley flashback, which Shamrock's father, Garling, was a big proponent of. And I guess the game is just going to be abducting kids. Because as Summers says, he's like, so we're abducting kids and bringing them over to the Holy Land. So yeah, they're going to take the children of Elbaf, bring them via ship back to Mary Joie, and I guess this is a way to force Elbaf to comply with them, to be subservient to the world government coming into this final war, I suppose. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.